King Charles there on that just a
dear, oh
list of
dear.
memories. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. He puts it so well. Liz Truss, well, she certainly tried, hasn't she? And I wonder if she'll, after this, be the last leader ever to try an experiment like this, Adam.
Oh, I think we may well get, in different, brighter circumstances, leaders who might try a fairly radical change of policy. The problem is she did it at such a time when the economy was already struggling, and when she hadn't established any money in the bank as far as her own credibility is concerned, and that shocked the markets. And what's extraordinary about this is that you say how must Liz Truss be feeling. I mean, I just get the sense that in spite of Kwasi Kwarteng tweeting, "We get it,"
Yeah.
they genuinely don't get it. I mean, we've still had cabinet ministers out there like Jacob Rees-Mogg saying, it's nothing to do with Liz Truss. It's just a coincidence that the markets tanked immediately after Kwarteng had announced his budget. You still hear it actually from economists supporting her, like Patrick Minford. They're so convinced.
There aren't too many Patrick Minfords out there, to be clear, are there? But
Well, I was at a dinner last night with a lot of money men, and one guy opened his contribution by saying this has got nothing to do with Liz Truss, and I had to say, well, the evidence is actually against you, mate. And I still think that they haven't yet realised that they have caused what's happened. And, the Institute for Fiscal Studies says at least half of the extra interest the nation is now going to be paid is directly down to Kwarteng's budget. And they still are pressing on with this, we've got to deliver growth. That's what's important. That's what the Foreign Secretary was saying.
Do you agree with that, Richard? Is it possible that they still don't get what went wrong and why? I know the line, the approved line from government ministers, oh, look, it's a global problem. You can't blame the mini budget. They're going to keep on, I guess they're going to keep on saying that, aren't they? Despite the absolute, the orchestral, coordinated chorus of experts in the city, in the big institutions, on their own side, let alone the other side, in the IMF, the IFS. The BFG, I was saying yesterday, the big friendly giant, he's practically joining in. Could they possibly not get that?
I think you have to realise that they see themselves as against this kind of orthodoxy, which Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng have both talked about, the Treasury orthodoxy, and they would apply all these grand economists, great and good, IMF, part of that kind of old mindset in their view.
I mean, I get they would take the view that the chorus of the conventional are wrong, but not even to get that they have caused the turmoil, or at least a share of it.
But the point is that it doesn't matter whether they think they're right or wrong. There is an economic reality that their ideological certainty is now run up against, and that is having real-term consequences for all of us and for the markets. And you're seeing that on those sort of terrifying graphs that come out every time Kwasi Kwarteng says something. So I think they do, Adam's right, they are in this mindset of we're right, they're wrong. And, there was that sort of Millwall slogan, nobody likes us, we don't care. And they did have that attitude. But now I think the MPs are beginning to think, well, actually, we need people to like us. We need to win our seats for the next election. So, again, that's going to run up against a political reality. But I do think Truss is still in this kind of, in her bubble.
I think Adam did put his finger on a really, really interesting thing there, which is if the sun was shining, as George Osborne sort of used in that famous phrase of his, mend the roof when the sun is shining. Outside, it's freezing cold. It's going to get much colder. All the politics and the economics say you don't even try it now. It makes no sense. It may be right, for the purpose of an argument. I was talking to John Redwood on the show just a little while ago, who made the point the Bank of England, maybe they should have been there with steeper rises in interest rates much sooner. We wouldn't have started from where we are now, and maybe that's true. But
we are starting
in the words of the old joke,
now.
We start from where we are now. Maybe we have been living on cheap credit for too long. Maybe too many of us have used our flats and our houses as endless collateral, and we certainly ignore productivity. But again, we are where we are, and you don't try and do that in a heartbeat, in a blink. Now,
I mean, there are some puzzling things. I can't quite understand why Andrew Bailey made his statement about you got 3 days to sort this out, and then we're going to withdraw any support in the markets if it's necessary for pension funds. I mean, the reality is the markets have basically ignored that. They think it will happen if it's necessary.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to see why he did it, but I think it was probably a kind of message to the government saying, you gave us a task to control inflation. We were also tasked with quantitative easing to keep the economy going during the COVID epidemic. Now we've got to impose some discipline.
Yes.
And all you guys have done is just, thrown the rule book out of the window.
Yeah.
And we've got to get back to the rules. But I mean, I think, it is undoubtedly the case that supporters of Liz Truss, wherever we come out of this particular economic crisis, will end up pointing the finger of blame at the Bank of England.
Yeah, I mean, look, on Friday, it is a big day. That's when the Bank of England takes away that safety net when it comes to the bond market. And effectively, there's the governor of the bank saying to the government that you do your job because I'm going to do mine. My job is about financial stability and making sure that there are no massive upsets. And it is said, it is argued, maybe convincingly, that he made available up to £65 billion to get into the bond
only
market.
spent a fraction of it.
Only a fraction of it was used. So maybe the need for it has been shown to be not as great as it might have been. You can safely take that safety net away.
Except it comes down to confidence in the end, that it's there if it's needed.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not there.
I noticed Julian Smith, the Tory MP, tweeted today, confidence, the feeling or belief that one can have faith in or rely on someone. And it's quite an amorphous thing. It isn't just about the billions that are actually put in the bank. It's about do the markets believe that the government is credible.
Yes.
And I was speaking to someone quite senior in the city at the Tory conference who was saying the problem is that it's the undermining of the institutions that's gone on. So the attacks on the OBR, the sacking of Tom Scholar, the sidelining of the OBR rather, the sacking of Tom Scholar, a succession of attacks on institutions.
And also the speed at which it was done. I mean, that undoubtedly Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng like to see themselves going back to Mrs. Thatcher in the 1980s. But I mean, the reality was when Nigel Lawson made his tax cutting move, first of all, he was cutting top rates of tax much more dramatically, but there had been preparation, a whole series of policies, and the economy was doing relatively well, which is one of the reasons why reducing the rate actually resulted in more money coming in. But it's not a given of economics. The Laffer curve has been widely disproved that every time you cut taxes, you actually get more revenue in from that tax. It's simply not the case. And, we had, as you say, Tom Scholar sacked within days. One did tend to think, well, who is Kwasi Kwarteng to sack someone who's got a proven track record in the Treasury?
Yeah.
Sacked him within days. And then we're told that, we're going for growth, when actually the economic arguments for the way the government is going about it, other than a so-called brief sugar rush, the fact that in the long term their plans actually will generate stronger growth. I mean, there simply isn't any evidence they can point to.
Yeah,
and I think
they don't have time. The key thing is that look, even if it's doable, they do not have time. The Prime Minister can say, and she has done to this station, to our Lucy Fisher, look, you'll see results in 2023. Look, economists and the forecasters and the institutes of fiscal judgment, they think it's going to take much longer than that. Tory MPs are going to be impatient, knocking on our door saying, hang on, you've got to have a result. There isn't one, please, on your way, long before that. So that bit is massively...
And that's what brings us to the cuts as well.
Yeah, what's happened now is they've already, irrespective of what happens to growth, they've already sacrificed the reputation for economic competence because the Tory MPs have no argument to their constituents about, how is this the policy of sound money?